Hello everybody and welcome to another basing techniques episode. This time I wanted to take you through a large creature. To me this is not exactly a large monster. I know for some people this is a large monster, and it's also a large base here. There's a couple of different elements. I think you can see that we've got our bulletin board cork right here. We've got this. We've got more bulletin board cork here, sort of the leftovers that we used as rocks. We've even got some of these little tree elements here. These are from Secret Weapon. These are little resin pieces there. We've got some just tree branches picked up off the ground. That's all these guys are. I just look for little interesting knobby things like this, and they are not too shabby. We have some rocks here from Luke's APS. We've got just some regular Elmer's glue here. We've got some of the texture paste. And we've got these from Gamer's Grass. I think I did throw a couple of these guys. Yeah, I think this one right here, that's actually one of these guys from Gamer's Grass. We'll see if we use those. We've got some skulls here. These are some of the GW skulls. We've got a little collection of weapons here from Reaper. And the idea is that this is, now the writer's not here, but this is a ridden monster, sort of a champion version of this. So I thought either we'd make this one a little bit higher or just give it some skulls, some of these defeated warrior weapons, something like that, just to make them look a little bit more important, I think. And we'll take you through the painting and the foliage process, because when I paint this guy, I'm just going to be putting him on a separate thing because we've already drilled holes in his feet. But I did want to show you how to plan something like this, and this is also an interesting thing because two of his feet are not actually attached here because, well, it's not really possible. You can see that one foot here, look at how that was actually lower than this foot that's on the ground. I had to deal with that. That was most unexpected, let me tell you. We've got ourselves another large base here. Now, the one that guy's on, that was from the Secret Weapon basing, resin-based collection. This is from the Reaper. I think it's called the Boss Basing or something like that, or Basing Boss. They're a huge set of different types of bases. Here, maybe I'll just get some of these guys off of here, and maybe it's got the Reaper name underneath it. So we got some pins here for obvious reasons. We know what we're going to need those for. Yeah, there we go. Reaper Miniatures. And this is one of the biggest circular bases that comes with it, I think. There are some of the oval ones, and I've got some large critters, and I thought some Forge World stuff, and I thought, well, we'll use those, and we'll do some basing on those guys too. This is going to be the most important material, and you can see even just a chunk like that, that's pretty much what we need. But see how that foot hangs below. That's something I've got, almost like he's walking over an edge. So I have to figure out, what do we do with this? I also thought about making it a little bit taller, making 2 levels of this instead of just 1. Will that work? This is what we're going to find out. We're going to get, especially in this early phase, what we're going to do is get our texture paste out here. We're certainly going to get this, our tree branches and our rocks. I think the other elements, we'll do those in a segment afterwards. It kind of has to happen fast. So once this ball gets rolling, it gets moving pretty darn quick. So what we're going to do is going to get our glue, our paste, all our fun stuff together, and we're going to start to lay down some of our bulletin board cork. We'll do that next. If this is going to be multiple levels, we're going to need ourselves a little bigger piece of our bulletin board cork, because we know if this one is going to be about the right size, somewhere thereabouts, we need something that's going to be a touch bigger. Now, I'm going to start breaking away some of this. But you can see I'm trying to break it away in large enough pieces like this so that it's usable for something else. And we've got a straight edge right here. That's no good. We certainly don't want any straight edges. So we're just trying to break this away. Even that's a little too straight. Look at that. Look at that nice little extra rock that we've got right there. And that's now what this does is it gives this. There we go. Okay, so that is going to be. Yeah, I like the fact that that hand is sort of, well, you can't see it over where his head is, but see how that leg is over the edge of the rock there. What I'm going to do now, shift this over this way a bit and break away enough of this to make it interesting. Some overhang. Not actually a ton. We don't want it to look like stairs. Look at that nice little formation right there. Is that just taking the top edge of this? Look at where my nail is here. Look at what I just did. See, I'm peeling that away. We're not just breaking it off this way. We're doing a little more than just that. What's going to happen here? This is actually kind of a important area right here to figure out what's going to happen with that. So let's see. Now, does this fit on? Yes, it does. It fits there. That's good. This guy can go here. That's all good. Couple of areas where we can use, see, something like this can be used here. Where's that other piece that I really enjoyed here? Now, this is the funny thing. Okay, so here's your cork piece. Here's your resin piece. They're very similar. The advantage of the cork piece is, look at this. You don't have to cover up that. Or you also don't have to do this. And you can see what I've got to do here. There's a little bit of concave shape there. But that is curved, which is not too shabby. So we're not actually going to glue these guys down yet. We're just looking to maybe place a few of these things. And because you've seen me use the cork, the extra cork in places before. I think, gosh, there's any number of basing videos you can look back on and see that. What you really haven't seen me, I think, utilize is these larger pieces. We've done a few small ones on some of the Lord of the Rings figures. I think Harad, maybe we used some of these guys. No, over here. Nope. I like it better here, and maybe this one. Yes, here. Now we've got this small one here. Let's grab this. None of this is rocket science. This is pretty darn easy. When you see this, you go like, well, yeah, that's not really terribly hard. It's not. If it were, I guess I wouldn't really be doing it. Okay, we'll just throw that little branch there. What the heck? We'll just position these in a couple of places around here just for fun. And we already have to start thinking about this. Now, to me, okay, as neat as that is, not practical because there's a monster standing there. This is the thing I'm most wanting to preserve. As much as I like this whole thing here, I don't know if I can have all of that. What I'm going to do is, it didn't exactly break where I wanted it to, but it's nature. That's what nature does. But that, see, that's nice and stable. That's not going to break. You can also see, look at this, we've got perhaps another shape that can go this way. We also have some greenery, so don't forget that. So we could pile that on there too. Now we've got ourselves potentially another. Let's not lose that. We could put, oh, look at that. That's kind of fun right there. That's not too shabby. And then things like these and the skulls, these will be kind of secondary. Don't worry about those right now. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to actually just snap a quick picture of this, just like this, so that I know where things go. Okay, got a picture of it. Because in the past I have done this and moved things around and then went, wait a minute, what was I trying to do there? How did I have that arranged? That seems to work okay. So first things first, we need to get this attached to this so we don't lose track of it. This is like the most important thing right here, because these other things still serve as a bit of a roadmap. Super glue here. I'm not going to deal with the texture paste yet, but I am going to use a bit of this. The Elmer's glue, think of it as the long-term hold. Think of the super glue as basically the thing that just kind of keeps it together until the Elmer's glue does its work. And also the Elmer's glue acts as a bit of a catalyst, basically like adding water to super glue, except it's water with glue in it, which is not a bad thing. Okay, I think that just about gets us there. And I don't mind if it creeps out from under the, who cares? There's going to be paste going there anyways. So we're good to go there. Then the next challenge is going to be, boy, I really do like that piece of wood there. I hope I can make that happen. This is not going to be as helpful down here. This is really more just to kind of activate the super glue, and hopefully we have enough super glue in here. Otherwise, we'll just get a new container. So I think we're basically just about out of this. That's the one downside to these little guys, is they do run out pretty quick. However, they're cheap. You can get lots of them. And the runniness factor is really helpful when it comes to like adding that branch there, and some of the other stuff, that runny glue, like the really thin runny glue like this, is actually pretty darn helpful. Okay, we're just trying to get this cap thing on here. Just give me a second. There we go. The downside to the bigger bases is you will go through it a whole lot faster. Let's make sure. Now I'm just going to give that a press right here. I'm just going to leave. Now, what I could do is, here we go. So we have another one of our jeweler's blocks. Well, I could just, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to leave there. No, sadly, that kind of covers things. So let's do, now you can see. I'm just going to try and do some stuff on this side here. So we know we want these elements. I'm going to try and just vaguely put them where they go. We've got one of these guys here for our texture paste. And we got plenty of these. And look at that brush. That is one tortured brush. And what is this? The earth texture? Yeah, let's just throw some of this out here. Don't be shy. Don't be taking too much though, because it'll set. We're going to add something to it here. This is actually one that does not mind mixing with Elmer's glue. Oh, look at this. Forgot this has this nifty little trough here, so we'll do that too. Get our, again, glue mixing in with this, because not all of them like this. I believe the red oxide version, it hates this. It turns into basically stringy uselessness. There's a couple of them, and I don't remember which ones. I think this is why I like this one so much, because I can mix glue in there. This is important when we want to put these rocks in here, so something to consider. Okay, as that just adds some weight to this, can see we're going to build this up. See how we're building this up the side here? It's not just a matter, we're not just covering it with a little bit of paste. We're trying to sculpt a little bit with this paste. Trying to do more than just get a little bit of this texture. We're trying to put here, look at this. This is what's going to mask that edge that we always talk about that we don't want to be seeing. And now you won't necessarily know that, okay, we've got a couple levels of conveniently placed bulletin board Sculpey, or bulletin board cork. So I've got Sculpey on the brain because there's some new texture rollers that arrived from Green Stuff World that are going to be really fun for certainly for one project that's coming up. Certainly for an upcoming army painting series. Well, and some individual things too. I think some Dark Sword figures could use it. There's another roller I'm pretty sure that will go definitely with some Dark Sword stuff. Okay, there's that. Remember our one resin rock piece here. Let's get you in place. And we have just some beat up old nasty brushes here that we can use. This is why I wanted to put the paste down first, because look what's happening. So I just push this paste, it goes right over the top there. Now there's no more edge. Its edge is covered. Very nice. We will do the same with this little stump right here. There it goes. Now, this branch, we wanted it to sit here. Move that tree back a little bit. So my goal is going to be here to just get a big old blob of this. More glue. Okay, because this is going to support it, but it's also going to adhere that branch. Remember, there's going to be other, I can put that there too. So what I want to do is something like that maybe. So we're going to throw a little bit of our stuff here. This is where we drop a little bit of our, remember this is where I like the runny stuff here. Because that is just going to adhere these two logs together and those two. So now we got just, it's like a pile of wood or whatever. Is it anything earth-shattering? Not necessarily. What I will do is place a couple of, get some larger rocks here. Some bigger rocks. Then we'll get down into some smaller stuff here. And that rock is most definitely bigger than what I was wanting. I'm going to dig into this and find some of the finer sand, pebbles, whatever. Chuck this in here, because remember there's going to be greenery too. It's just like weathering. We always talk about that. There's going to be flock added to this. So many more things. But that's not too shabby right there. I'm going to take this off. And we're going to do this side. which I think is going to take a twist. There we go. That's better. That's better. Put these again off to the side, somewhat in the position they're supposed to be in. We're also going to work our paste up the side of this. Also keep in mind that we're going to do the painting on this, and we're going to do the foliage on this. Since I can paint that figure separately, I thought it just presented a unique opportunity. Normally, that the figure is actually still on the base, and that would have been hard for you to see the painting of it and the foliage. This one I thought, oh, you know what? They'll actually be able to see most everything that happens on this, so why not give it a shot? Again, this doesn't just fill in gaps, it also strengthens it. And this needs as much strength as it can get. Let's get ourselves another blob out here. We're going to throw some more glue into that. I will say this, the more of the Elmer's glue that you add, it doesn't weaken the strength. It actually makes it more adhesive, but it also will make it sag a little more. It's not going to hold its texture as much as just the straight up texture out of the container. Makes sense, right? What are you doing to it? You're thinning it down basically. So you'll lose a little bit of its, like, that wouldn't collapse at all if it was just straight out of the container. So just a little something just to be aware of. While I've got it here, I'm just gonna, so again, that hides this very obvious area where it says, oh look, we have a second layer of the exact same type of cork. Whereas here, we're blending that just a bit. Now over here, this is where I'm thinking, what did that one really nifty, here's a nifty rock right here. And this one, because it's just bulletin board cork and not a piece of resin, see, that's just going to get stuck right there. I'm actually going to break this away. Kind of like that idea a little bit more. Just feel free to make changes. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? That can't go there. That can't go there, but maybe it can go over here. Maybe up here. So I'm going to just take some of this. Okay. That's a little better. What about another piece here? So it starts to look, instead of just a cliff, now it looks like it's sort of broken. It's been broken down a little bit. Oh, let's get the rest of our texture paste out here real quick. Good enough. Where's my glue? Okay, there's something that's in the way there. I don't know what that's, like a little piece of cork or something. Okay, that is solved. Now the little tree stump type thing there. And then our last, and again, this is from Gamer's Grass. There we have it. Let's get our smaller brush here and work this stuff over the edge. Just kind of hides that a little bit. And then with our next segment, what we're going to do is we'll continue on with what we have going here with kind of our next level, right? We'll add stuff like we might be adding the skulls and such in our next segment. It kind of depends on how much time we have. Here, let's get some of the glue going in here. Just get a little more of my paste here. I might just thin it down a bit too. Might just thin that down. And the idea is just to cover up that edge there. Is it a messy process? Yeah, it's messy, whatever. I'm going to throw a bit more glue out here. Because I would like those rocks that we're going to add here. That's the last thing we'll do is we'll add those rocks as we've done before. And I'm just going to try and get these brushes just to sit in some water. You can use rubbing alcohol too, but, well, rubbing alcohol is a little more rare these days. So this is another way we're going to make this look a bit like a rock fall here. As we chuck in some larger rocks first. Some bigger rocks. Like you do. Let's get some of them here. Gonna push this up a bit so that you can maybe see what I'm selecting here out of my... Again, this is from Luke's APS. Normally you see me using those 3 stages of rocks, and lately I've been testing this out and to see how this works. Do I really like it? I realize this is more originally intended as a, where you're not actually painting it the way we're going to be doing. It's really intended more as a finishing thing on a terrain board, diorama, whatever. But there we go. Got a nice rock fall going on there. So what we'll do is we're going to finish kind of our front edge, back edge, and then we got to get this secondary edge here. I'm thinking I'm not going to do a second tree branch. I had thought of putting this right here, but you know what? I'm just going to leave that. I had thought about putting this one over here. Maybe I'll still do that. It all depends what happens with this. It all depends what happens with this. You know what? I guess I can put that one there. Okay. All right. Quick change here, folks. Quick change. Just going to throw some glue out here. And hopefully I can get this in that same spot again. Not that way. Goes this way. And this is, again, where I like this glue because it's going to wrap itself around these edges and make contact where I need it to. There we have it. So, again, we're going to work on our front and the back, and then on the second level here, and then we kind of give it our little add-ons with the skulls and our weapons, and we'll do that next. Let's finish up the back portion of this base for sure. Working on basically both levels, top and the bottom. Okay, that's good to go there. I'm just trying to scrape off some of this excess here and make it still usable. I think that works. Also, one of my goals is to get some of this underneath that piece of branch over there. There we are. That's just going to stabilize that. We always got to think about those things, especially something that's going to be used as in games. It's not just going to be sitting in a cabinet somewhere. We have to make those kind of basing elements as hardy as possible. All right, this over here, we got a big old overhang. That all this is going to do is just be a pain to try and paint and get stuff in. That's where things like this are helpful. It's almost like we're just gluing back pieces that we broke off. But this is another area where the paste is very helpful because now it just sort of, it doesn't just glue those together, it really solidifies those. So we can use these bits here as more rocks. So if we don't have the Luke's APS rocks like this, you could almost grind this stuff up, or just kind of maybe put it all in a bag with some other rocks in it and just smash the heck out of it. There's probably a lot of different things that you could do. I just saw something, and oh, this is something I'm gonna have to give a try. Not so much for a terrain piece, but for a diorama where you take pink foam and you actually cut it into little pieces, little squares, rectangles, whatever, and you actually do literally throw it in a bag of rocks, and you just tumble that the bag of rocks all over the place, and that just kind of beats up the yeah, it really it puts texture on your stones. So to me, I'll just do that, and we could do some kind of a fun little diorama piece out of that. I think that would be very interesting. Now, over here, we got this little bit of a gap here. We want to fill that, but also make it look like there's some soil here, right? There's some soil that's gathered. It just makes that incline look less. Now, I don't want to get too crazy with rocks and stuff here because this is not a bad place to throw a sword or something like that. So these sort of areas where, oh yeah, that's neat to have a rock fall. It's also probably the neatest place to have some of your what you'll call it, your broken weapons or shields or whatever. So depending on what you got in mind, I'll move this up again so you can see what we're trying to grab here. Now that I just don't like that. This is the one thing about this is it's got tons of different types of rock, which is sort of interesting and also sort of a little bit of a pain when you don't like that particular rock. I can see that some of these are kind of like a river rock sort of thing, that some of them are very rounded edged. Some of them are actually very sharp edged. So there's some of the kind of your sandier stuff there. Now here we're just going to put this on edge a bit because I want this to really fall down into the crevices here. Okay. Now we've got this here. And I don't think I could do too much with the rocks here because maybe this is a good place for some skulls or one of those broken weapons. So we'll stay pretty mild with that. We'll just do some of the lighter. It doesn't always have to be real heavy with the rocks. So our next thing here is our front edge. Thinking of, do I have any decent pieces of my... Come on. No, I'm just gonna... I see a couple of larger pieces of this rock here. I'm just gonna chuck some of those in there. which now leaves us with this area up in here. Might just have to get a little bit more paste to kind of finish this all off. I thought I had enough. I was pretty close. See that hole right there? Even the paste itself covers that. So you got those, maybe not such a bad thing. Like I said, none of this is difficult, at least in the idea, the concept. But knowing the pattern in which to do it and how best to support things, it really just it comes from, well, hard experience. There's things that kind of go a little bit haywire, a little screwball, and then you say, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe not doing that again. Maybe we don't want that to happen again. And a couple of and sometimes the rocks just fall out of your hand, don't go exactly where you want. I used to get, oh man, I really wish I had that rock land there. Once I realized how much of it's getting covered up with foliage, especially these that are supposed to be a forest type base, where we're going to put these trees over the top of it, meaning these guys here. Because look at this. Look at how much greenery there is. Look at this. This is why we didn't go crazy painting in here. And you'll see when we paint this, there's grass tufts, all kinds of things going on. That's supposed to be very much a lush forest base. Not a rainforest or a jungle, but definitely kind of a lush base. With what's left here, I would like to get a little more support onto this. I'm going to give it a light dusting of our rocks. Enough now. Where's he going to go? Where exactly will he go? He's going to go right about here. Okay. So this front area, this is where we're thinking for some of our skulls and weapons. Now, I'll just snip off this weapon here, and I don't think I'll break it. I'm just going to now file this down. Any number of things that we could use. We could use this. We could use a regular metal file here. It doesn't have to be too perfect because it is going to be rusted up probably and that sort of thing. So we're just going to get that just good enough. And the idea is that this will maybe sit right there. And see, look at this. I can just leave it where it's at. And this, once this glue dries, we'll just seal that in place. It's going to be locked there. This is what I've been waiting this whole time for you to see why we're using this, well, cheap but effective super glue. Now I'm also going to support that with just a couple of these little pieces here, almost acting like shims. That's right. Not thinking about another knife there, but we've got this little axe. Let's do the same thing with this. Maybe drop this over there. Oh, that's a nice place. That's a nice place for it. Nice little place. It's a nice little place for a dropped axe. Okay, so it's touching the ground. It's touching our resin. So we'll throw our glue there, and for sure down here, and another one there. So as that dries, it's going to really lock those in place. We got some skulls somewhere. Just going to push this out of harm's way, and then we're just going to prep some skulls here. So I've got 3 of this type. And I still have some of these guys. It's time to get some more of these. 3 of this type. And as always, we've got ourselves a sanding stick here. That for these, there's just this one mold line that runs over the top of them. The Green Stuff World skulls, there's maybe a few times where you can obviously see some sort of mold line. Those tend to not have them. I also like the different shapes. The green stuff, now the GW skulls, there's a lot of human skulls, and then it kind of goes to demons and orcs. What I like about the green stuff world skulls is that they have sort of almost like a ogre-sized heads, giant heads. They're a little more humanoid and a little less orcified. That's, if I may use that term, a little less orky. Now, the other thing, too, is when you do your little glue like that, where you're hoping that the glue sort of soaks in over the top and goes down in there, if you throw more, any kind of rock or gravel or sand over the top of that, well, realize it's going to cover that. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Not really, because maybe the skull looks more like it's sunk into the landscape or is more overgrown, potentially. All right, look at what we've got here. Got some skulls that are ready to go. And I think we're going to put a little collection of these over here. Now I will, and this always gets pretty comical when I try using the tweezers. I don't know why. It's always quite comical. But we'll give it a shot. So far it hasn't flown out of my hands. We're out of the grasp of the tweezers, at least. I'm putting a little cluster right here because it's almost like I'm building a little mini diorama out of just this one area. A little vignette within a vignette. Kind of also supports that sword blade there. Oh, why don't we throw another one over here? What do we have here? Let's, like a triangle. We have a 1, 2, 3. Done. What the heck? This is a crazy. Maybe nobody ever even sees this, but I'm liking the idea of maybe one of these little skulls up here. And I may grab some more. Yeah, that's kind of fun. I know the critter's not going to get in the way of it, so we got another skull out there. This is the other ledge. Remember, we were thinking about over here. We got a couple of skulls left. Boy, look at that neat rock fall. So I gotta say, I have to say, I'm becoming more and more convinced of the mixed instead of like what I had done, my heavy to the medium to the light. I'm kind of not completely converted, I'll tell you that. It's not a complete conversion yet, but it's getting there. I'm seeing the now, of course, other ones haven't necessarily worked quite so well. Other ones have worked even better than this, and I've given a bunch of them a shot. Give that another little kiss of the. Now this is where okay. So here's another. This is another one of the Luke's APS here. This is their rubble here. That is much finer. And that is what I need. I'm even gonna. I could just use regular sand too. So there's that. Okay. Very nice. So we've got some skulls out there. We've got ourselves. Do we have one more over here? Oh, what the heck! It's a champion figure. Let's do it. Where'd my glue go? Got this crazy rock sitting on here. Going to snip off another skull from our little thing here. We'll file him down. File him down, and let's hope he doesn't roll off this little rock pedestal right here. He doesn't. I'm going to make sure he does it now with the addition of some of that. One last thing here. One last thing. So we're going to see where he goes. All right, so back here, in here, these are two areas. I've got a little bit of my paste left over here. Okay, just trying to use what we've got left here. It's going to do a couple of things. I was hoping to find something like this. Now look at this piece. See how relatively flat that is? I'm just going to get a little bit of regular glue here. A little regular glue. Because this flat plateau, a little too flat. That breaks up that shape just a little bit. It's the tiniest that 99.9% of the people are just gonna not even notice and say, wow, look at that. But they subconsciously, they might look at this and really think of it more as more realistic, possibly. I'm gonna go with this around the edge of this. So see, now it's not just all flat, flat, flat everywhere. Not all flat everywhere. We're gonna take a couple of these rock pieces. Again, we don't have to worry. It's not going to interfere with the critter itself. I'm just going to throw a touch of that. And now let's go in with some of our lighter to mid. And that's it. That's enough. We got plenty of stuff going on here. What we are going to do is we're going to let all this stuff dry. Then we're going to prime that. And I don't think it's really important for you to see I might snap a few pictures of the primer or something like that. The primer, from whatever. I kind of don't always use the same color as a primer, so that's why I didn't want to get too engaged with, oh, you must have this color of primer to make this work. But our next, we will paint this up. That's quite nice. That's a big old base. There's a lot going on there. It's kind of heavy already, even before the figure's on there. All right, everybody, let's let this dry, and let's get some paint on this next. So we're going to make another change here in our approach. We're going to use our Badger Stynlrez as always. We're going to brush this on. I thought, what the heck? I always talk about it. I've shown it a few times. Let's do something really colossal with some brush on primer. And got some big old brushes here. There's our number 12 round craft brush. This is the same one that we were using with our glue and everything else. And you can see just a little rubbing alcohol. Good to go. We have this flat brush here. We'll see what we use, see what's going to happen with that. But let's throw out a little bit of our ebony over here. Now on the palette, we actually have some brown liner. Actually going to throw some blue liner out there too. I've got a little bit of the burnt sienna. And then we also got some maggot white. And let's get some of the ebony out here like so. What the heck, we'll even throw a little bit of this is the red brown right here, again, Stynlrez. Get big old brush here. And let's get this started. let's do this. So there's again a brown liner mixed with the ebony. And I'm really going to focus on things like the resin stuff. And some of the rocks are going to come loose. I can tell you that right now. It's inevitable. It's not a big deal. A couple of rocks coming loose, not going to hurt anything. Now, obviously, airbrush probably makes it easier to get around some of these angles, but not everybody has airbrushes, of course. Again, the focus is anything that's resin or metal first, or plastic over here. Because this stuff here, the cork, it's so absorbent, you could just put paint on that. You don't have to prime that. Again, the focus on all those resin parts, plastic parts, plastic parts. And because they're spread around here, we're also still getting a decent amount of primer. Again, this is the ebony flesh. It's my favorite. I would use some black primer in this mix if I had some, but unfortunately I don't. So we're making do with what we have. Actually, on that first one there, I was doing some mix of contrast paint, I think, for some of the shading on it. Okay, this is the last bit of the plastic and resin that needs to be taken care of here. Right. Couple skulls. And that's the red-brown primer. Right over that tree. Let's make sure it's pretty well covered. And I think that is good to go now. Let's just do the rest of this here. We'll hit some of these tree branches in the ground. You can see I just took a little bit of the burnt sienna and a little bit of that red-brown primer together. Just hit some of the dirt here. Dirt, rocks, whatever that's supposed to be, and then this little deadfall right here. It does not have to be a perfect color here. I used to, my goodness, the time that I used to spend on making all of this, the rock colors just right, painting every rock just so, and I realized, well, wait a minute, why exactly am I painting all of these rocks so much when foliage could be put on there, moss, all kinds of actual weathering effects instead of just painting the rock itself. I guess I don't want to say the downside, but if there's a downside to this, well, obviously the paint takes a little bit longer to dry because of how much more heavily it's being brushed on. To me, it's really not that much of a problem. It's not such a great loss whatsoever. And even with the airbrush, just I know because I've painted so many bases like this, it's not necessarily more efficient either when you really look back at it. So I'm going to just get a little bit more of the ebony flesh out here, and I want to make sure that I've got any sort of gaps filled up here. And this thing is pretty rough. And that's obviously where the advantage is with the airbrush. It just sort of glides over this rough surface. You don't really have to worry about missing. Well, it's still easy to miss a spot. I can tell you that because having had to fill them in after the fact, there's definitely times you miss those spots, even with the airbrush. And I think this is the last of the areas that just has no primer/paint on it at all. And you can see, yeah, there's a bunch of rocks that came off there, but it's best to get those rocks off of there now than than later. So let's get a little more of our brown liner out here. Touch of blue liner, that's going to give us more of a black. And as always, it clogs. I cannot. It's funny because the dropper bottles, the cheap, nasty dropper bottles that I have for the oils, they never clog. Now, part of that is that the oils inside the jar, well, those aren't drying the way they are in an acrylic container. But I do find it funny. Now, you can see we're starting to darken this down a bit. It's also shifting it a little bit more towards the blue in some cases. I can see there's another little area down here that just needs the paint. Okay. And any areas that I missed, when I look at this later, say, oh my gosh, no paint got in there. I'm just going to take some glue, and I'm going to let that glue seep down in there, and the glue is going to adhere some of the foliage to it, and no problem. Okay, so here's some of these rocks came off. I'm just gonna flick those right off of there. Doesn't matter. Let's start with a little core here that's kind of a greenish gray. It's gonna blend with a lot of our stuff that's already wet here. Which I'm sort of counting on to get some different colors. See how it's blending. It's almost like we're painting with oils. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry for a little bit, especially here around the trees and some of the gaps down there. It's not a bad start. Not a bad start to our painting process. I'm going to give this about 2-3 minutes just to set up a little bit. I want it to dry completely, but I want it to set up a little bit to make more efficient use of the painting here. And we'll be right back with that. So some areas are a little bit drier, and I was also able to get some of the paint out of the brush here, which means now it's even that much more of a open shape here. And you can see how we're kind of painting it against the grain just a bit. Not a dry brush. We have plenty of paint on that brush. Plenty of paint on there. I know this looks so much lighter. It's really not that much lighter at all. You can also see the difference in the resin pieces versus the our, not ceramic tile, I'm thinking of Scoopy baking, yeah. Our bulletin board cork, so much more absorbent. So we're going to let those be now for just a bit. We're going to take our paper towel, just like what we do with the oils there. I'm going to throw a little bit of the sepia liner here. Some of that. Going to get some of that onto our trees. I want to have some reddish brown. I want to have a couple of some gray, some greenish gray. But again, it's nothing that is earth-shattering here. This is not, and you can do whatever you want with your base. This just has to match everything else that I've done for the army. Sorry, including the other base that I just did a few days ago. And I say I've got to get some paint underneath there. And more rocks might fall off. If I had done this with just the airbrush, fewer rocks would have fallen off. There's no doubt about that. Is it a big deal? Not really. It is not that big of a deal. I'm going to take a little bit of clear orange here. At some point, actually, I want to do this with the liquid pigment fixer and the weathering powders and see what happens, like we did on the bus, like we've done on the terrain. Okay, so there's a almost sort of orangish type color there. You can see I'm picking out a few areas here of the ground surface, just to make it a little bit different than the rocks, which will be cooler, grayer, as you would expect. A little bit on our tree branch here. What have we? Yeah, let's go here. Do some more. This, and if I see a little gap or whatever in some of the paint, I will go after that. And you can see some of that brown and blue is mixing with the sepia. Make that sepia a little bit lighter now. Yeah, go after some stuff like the skulls and maybe even the handle on the axe or whatever. Can always do glazes over this too if I feel like I need to darken something back down. Actually use the combination of the liner paints, I think, and some of the contrast paints for a few of the glazes on that other base. See that, just everything gets a little bit lighter, but still some variance on the tones here for something. And we have to remember we're setting up this for all that green, all the foliage that's going to be coming later on here. Just go a little bit lighter with that, and you can see it really get that filbert brush going. Is that going to be more of a gold color? Most likely. In the end, most likely. Now I'm going to dry out the brush a little bit because it's almost getting to be that stage where we're getting not a dry brush, but Look at how lightly we're holding the brush here. A much gentler brush stroke now. And you can see the wood here has, instead of it being super reddish brown, which for deadfall, would that really make a lot of sense? Most likely not. Most likely not. We'll continue to add in some more of that pale, some more of that, was it the maggot white there? Sorry. Because we've got the sepia tone in there, and again, that's the Reaper sepia liner. It gives that maggot white there a bit more of a little bit more of a greenish appearance, warms it up a touch. Man, the skulls start to stand out without standing out too much. Always a good thing. These rocks start to emerge a little bit. Because not every single rock has to be a bluish gray. Even that would get a bit boring, a bit too much. Too much of a good thing is still too much. Is that Book of Wapol worthy? I don't know. There could be other verses very similar to it. So I'm going to do the same thing here, where we just take our paper towel, get some of that paint out of the... Look at all that paint that's in there. That's why I'm saying that was not a dry brush. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Now, let's go back to these rocks, because they definitely are much drier now. And if I have to remove some paint, I can put a little bit of that on me. I don't want these to get too light, because, well, you've got that big old monster that's supposed to be tramping across these, and he would sort of cast a shadow. That's the other reason why I found myself just kind of painting the base a little less, because, well, I tend to, when you're painting the base more and more and more, what are you doing? You're adding more and more lights to it, most likely, lots of contrast and such. And then you put the figure on there and you realize, well, that area should kind of be in shadow. Maybe shouldn't be quite that light. Oh, there was a rock. I thought there was another skull set in there. And as some of the paint gets used up, again, still not a dry brush. Part of it is because we're picking up paint that's already there. But it's a wee bit more dry. Again, this area here, as much as I'd like to pick up some of the textures that are on that, he's walking right over the top of that. It would just, there should be a heck of anything, it should be darker. If anything, that should be a wee bit darker than continuing to highlight it over and over again. Yeah, I think those resin pieces from Gamer's Grasp, they kind of match the texture of that bulletin board cork. It's around the same size of grain. Who knows? Well, I have a feeling that they just took maybe small pieces of smashed up rock and made casts of it. I think at some point maybe I'll have to show how we used to do the Sculpey rock bait. Now, I have a video on it already. That's why I'm not super anxious to go ahead and kind of do that same video again 7 years later. But if you check out a couple of the older painting pyramid basing videos, you will see me taking just regular old rocks and pressing those into Sculpey. It's been a long time since I did that, actually. I guess that's why I'm just was thinking about it, because it's been so long, and wonder, is there any new twist on that? Something different that I could do with it that I didn't think of years ago, because, well, everything was pretty different. You didn't really have as much of the 72 millimeter stuff then. Everything was much different. I don't even think you had the Bones stuff at the time. Oh, maybe you just Bones one had just kind of fulfilled. That's how long ago we're talking about. Long time ago. All right, I'm gonna go with a little bit more of the maggot white here. There we go. And I'm gonna use a little smaller now. That's that same number 8 round craft brush that was looking pretty much destroyed not long ago. Is it an ideal painting brush? Not really, but it's not too bad for what we need it for here. Because those bristles are sort of, they're so beat up, they're nice and soft. And I'm just looking for a couple of edges here, not everywhere. Like here, I'm going to let that be sort of a cluster of shadows. That sounds like some kind of a film noir or some kind of dark book or something like that. The cluster of shadows. Okay. How many more areas? Not too many more. What I'm going to do now, take a little bit of this and make something like that. Couple of the trees and a couple of the skulls here. I don't really mind the GW skulls too much. I like the combination of both the Green Stuff World skulls and the GW skulls, because there's a little bit difference in there, and between the GW ones and the Green Stuff World ones, when you have both of those together, you get some nice separation between them. It's not like, okay, look, here's the same skull. It's just over here now, next to this other type of skull that we've seen 1,000 times before. And yes, I know skulls can be cheesy, but it's a real simple way to indicate, well, something happened here on the battlefield. If I had more extra shields and weapons and things like that, now I will. There is something else that I wanted to show. If you remember some of the Song of Ice and Fire tutorial where we're taking those texture plates and I'm using those for the Song of Ice and Fire units, cutting those up. So that's another thing that could work for something like this. Look, obviously we're getting some of this orange or yellowish type color even here onto these rocks, just to make sure there's a little difference there. Not all just the same. Okay. I'm gonna actually get a little bit of clear red here. Look at that. Can I get any out here? Just telling you, these dropper bottles, they just live to be annoying. And it's everybody's, any dropper bottle that is like that, they all just clog. The secret weapon ones clog. The Vallejo ones clog. The Vallejo ones are almost a little bit worse. They crack like crazy. So I think we've got ourselves a bit of a burnt sienna there. Also wanted to make a little bit of a rust color potentially for our weapons that are sitting there on the ground. And as you can see, we're just in some parts of the trunks here, giving that a little bit of a reddish brown look. Not everywhere, just a few places. I knew there was one more somewhere. And I'll even throw a touch of that onto the ground here, especially if there's going to be some green afterwards. Why don't we lighten that up a bit? We're painting with a brush that had sand and glue and rocks in it not terribly long ago. And who knows, I'll probably be using it for oil paints. And it could be lots of different things we could use it for. I'm going to get some of this red over here too. Just, we're trying to make sure that we don't let this get too boring. Here we're going to get a little bit of a rust on some of our implements over here. It's a little more orange. Some orange rust there. With the skulls now, I'm gonna get a little bit of light on those. With the foliage, we're gonna be using a combination of some Woodland Scenics, some Gamers Grass, potentially some Warlord Tufts. There could be several things that we use for our landscaping materials on this. I really do like the Woodland Scenics, that sort of realistic tree foliage there. The ironic thing is that I've never actually gotten to use, well, no. Okay, some of my old dioramas, and by old dioramas, I mean going in the way back machine to 2003, 2004. I did try to use those to make something that resembled trees. I haven't done it for any of my terrain projects yet. I guess that's where I'm going with that particular thought. But since we are going to be returning to some dioramas here, I think we'll try and combine those with these natural trees here. That is something that I never did. I tried to combine them with the Woodland Scenics plastic trees, and that was never quite satisfying. Never truly satisfied with those crazy plastic trees. For terrain, you're far enough away, and they're part of a bunch of other trees anyways, so you don't really notice. They're fine for that. But when it comes to something like a diorama, when you got the miniatures right there on that, it's basically like a decorative terrain piece at that point, and you can see too much of the flaws there unless you were to sculpt some extra. Oh, okay, maybe that's an interesting video, potentially turning those plastic trees into something a little more realistic. Wow, okay. Hopefully I'll remember that, because that now intrigues me. I have a bunch of those. I do have several, and that might not be the worst project in the world to try. Those plastic trees, and what I mean by plastic trees, they have no foliage on them. They're literally just flat pieces of plastic, but they have wires inside, basically a wire armature, and you can bend those, and then basically they become tree branches in whatever shape you sort of want, except there's a limited number of tree branches, and they end up looking a little wonky. But maybe that'll be a fun. Ooh, terrain challenge. Maybe that's a new series. Terrain challenge. Can we do this effect with this material? I don't know. That could be a fun series. I can even use my finger here and push that around. So again, let's look at what we have here. So you can see just how much that actually shows. Look at how much of the foliage and stuff there is covering up that. That's why we're not going crazy with the painting process here. You know, what I'm gonna maybe throw on here is just a few quick. Here, let's do this. That's not quite the color we're looking for. I'm looking for a. So here's one of the intensity inks. I'll throw it in one of these here. So that was kind of a green. I don't really have the color that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to take this sort of reddish color here, this orange color, throw that in there and see what kind of a mix I get. It's actually got a little bit of my opaque paint in there. And sponge. Ah, look at that. Looks almost a little bit on the like kind of a greenish moss there. So again, that was a couple of Green Stuff World Intensity inks. I'll even throw some of that on my trees here. Heck, maybe even on a couple of the skulls there. Maybe even on some of the rocks down here. So yeah, and as that dries and becomes not glossy anymore. All right, so that's an interesting little thing there. I mean, you could buy the moss whatever stuff, or you could just take Green Stuff World Intensity inks and make your own, like we just did there. So at this point, we will let this dry as much as possible. We'll go back in and we'll put our foliage on here. And then our base will be ready for the figure itself. Now, I'm liking that extra little bit of green there. I'm liking that. Maybe it's a little bit different than the other one, but again, you won't be able to tell once all that other greenery gets on there. So I think we're good now on our painting. So what we're going to do, like I said, let this dry for just a bit, and then we are going to get ourselves some nifty foliage and greenery. And you'll see this really does transform once again. As much as this transformed it, it's going to transform once again, and we'll be right back with that. So the base is all painted, and it's ready to go for some foliage here. We've got several different types. We've got a bunch of stuff from Gamer's Grass right here. These are some big tufts. We have some regular sized tufts here. We're going to be using some of the Luke's APS fast drying glue. We've got some of our, I think that is the pine or forest ground cover there. This is actually the new one that this is arid grasslands right here. It's one I've been mixing actually with. So this is Woodland Scenics right here. And last but not least, this is, and it looks like just like a ball of foam right here, but this is the fine leaf foliage here from Green Stuff World, and I really do enjoy this stuff. It's amazing the kind of things that you can essentially mimic with that. Now let's start off first of all with some tufts here to figure out where should those go. Have some of those down here. I'm just going to open up these packages here and chuck out some. I just wanted you to get a sense of what the packaging looked like and just how many are in each of these individual packages here. And I'm looking for, I'm going to put one over here, I think. Now we've got ourselves one of our pins. And these you have to kind of work from the bottom up on these if you're going to take these off of here. If you just yank them from the top, grass is going to come loose. But it's a nice, not just a nice big tuft, but there's, so you got some difference in the, some of it's a little bit more brownish. I'm just going to put this right over here. That's a nice big old tuft right there. We don't want this one over here. I might, no, even there. A little bit on the larger side. See if I can tear this. I was able to. Remember those areas that we were just going to fill in with foliage? Well, that's what we're doing right here. Filling in gaps there. I don't have to worry about whether it's painted or not or anything. It's another tuft over here. That's going to go back in here. Again, the idea is these big old tufts right here, and so we kind of fluff those out once they're down there. Just filling in a lot of these blank areas. Let's grab a couple of smaller tufts. The other thing I've noticed is actually that the glue on these guys is pretty darn good. A lot of them, not so fine. That really sticks out. Look at that. Nice little bit of greenery there around the skulls. We're going to get another tuft here on the other side of this tree stump. All of a sudden, not just does it add some more color, but it's kind of hiding all of the things that I didn't really like so much. That's never a bad thing. I'm going to chuck one back here too. So I got different sizes of tufts. Lots of fun different things happening there. Now, I'm going to try one or two of these right here. They're kind of tall. They're not necessarily very wide. And this one, I'm going to throw it right over here. So it's a little different type of foliage. And yeah, I like the fact that it's kind of on the taller side. And I think, you know what, for the heck of it, I am just going to toss one right over here. I was thinking these should only be towards the ground, but I'm almost trying to make little dioramas within a diorama here. If that makes any sense. Little minor compositions inside the larger overall composition. Now let's get these guys out of harm's way here very quickly. Let's think about some of our not quite yet. Let's do some of our foliage here. And this can get a little messy. It doesn't always break the way you think it's going to. Sometimes you just kind of free up some of the foliage and then you get something really nice. Actually, you got a couple of nice pieces here. Look at this. Look at that little sprig right there. That's pretty sweet. I'll make sure I've got some focus for you here. 1 second. And I might even go one closer. So that's a sprig worth saving, and so is that one. Sometimes they just kind of look like a ball, and that's not necessarily so fantastic. This one is yielding maybe some, okay, it's a nice little, very small sprig. I'm going to set that over there with some of my small sprigs. And here's one that almost was a neat one. That one kind of tore where I didn't necessarily want it to. Now this one got a little bit smushed. However, and sometimes I kind of shake off the loose stuff. It's going to fall off anyway. So see, it's another nice little tiny sprig there. So save that one. And then actually what I will do is instead of putting these back into the main container, I'll just have a smaller container for stuff like these, the sprigs that don't get used. And I think we've got another nice little sprig right here. Let's see where some of these can go. Targeting an area down in here for sure. So we get some of our glue out here. Down in here. And just going to chuck some glue there. And this is again where the glue, see, I just kind of drop it in here. And I'm just going to settle down into that, those kind of crevices there. I've got some other little, put a sprig on top of a sprig. So that sort of hides that gap a bit. And I'm wondering about this sprig right in here. So again, we're going to fill that up with some glue. Hold it in place for a second here. And there we go. Now, that just went from like, yeah, okay, great, a couple of sticks, yay. We've got grass here. We haven't even added any of our other flock yet. So already something there that looks like some kind of a more natural formation there as opposed to just, well, okay, look, you took a couple of sticks from outside and you just chuck some paint on them. Big deal. So what? That's a little more than just chucking some paint on something. Gonna stuff that in there. So yeah, all those gaps, those are the perfect places for something like this. So there's another place for some kind of a, I'm looking for a smaller one. Something like that. Again, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of glue there. And one more. Sprig and bang. There we go. It all starts to make a little more sense. Here, another good place for one of our sprigs. Except, first I'm going to go over here with one. I think I've got to, no, I don't want to use that one. I'm going to find myself, I'm sure that I can find something that'll work down in here. Okay. Put some glue over in here. Let's find again a couple of more things that could work like that. Okay, it just went away. There we go. So this, as much as I like, and sometimes on my own stuff, I've actually drilled little holes and stuck those in like trees, but here, because of shipping and other concerns, we're going to try and give that a little bit more of a foundation. Once again, a couple of drops of glue. So we're just trying to match the consideration with the situation. Yeah, look at this. See, look at that right there. We'll give it another hint of super glue there, just to make that bond. And actually, before I even do any of that, look, we're just gonna a little bit of this to cover wherever we think we have some glue where there shouldn't be some glue. So let's not go too nuts with the sprigs and sprues here. We'll push this off to the side now. And let's get some of these guys here. And we're going to take some of our Luxe APS and we're going to water that down, because that's kind of effective when we want to have it really sink down into some crevices. Let's see, do I have, I'm just looking for, I think, I just want to make sure this is water. That's water. Because I have a container like this that has the white spirits in it, and we don't want to be using that. Okay, hopefully that doesn't get too thin. I'm going to take some of the water out of that. You can see that. Good. And now, I'm going to start up here, actually. Work my way down. Letting that sink into those crevices there. I'm going to take a touch of our forest ground cover. And a little bit of our arid landscape. Even a touch of our green flock there. I'm going to get a little more of my glue in here. Mix this up here. That's a little better. Start again up here. Work my way down. There's so many wonderful greens and tans and other colors that are happening here. To be honest, I think these kind of bases for me, they have improved just in the last few months. It's not like I didn't like the other ones that I made, and I'm sure if I look back and I'd say, well, yeah, what am I thinking? I don't like that very much. But it's not that I don't like them. It's just there's something here. There's a little extra something. There's a little more depth in here than maybe before. I told you the whole analogy of maybe painting things a little bit less and relying more on texture instead of just the color. Now some texture. So again, we're going to take some of our forest cover here, a little bit of our arid landscape there, and then some of our greenery. Just gonna make sure, I'm gonna double check here that we've got this in focus for you. I'd hate for that not to be. And I'm just gonna a couple of dots here around the skull. And then maybe here it's just gonna be the green. Maybe not so much with the dirt, but more of our green foliage. Let's get some of that arid landscape in here. Again, it's a combination. There's like 2mm static grass in there, which is pretty interesting. Back to a bit more here. Because I just see some, I'm literally seeing a few holes in the paint there, and we're filling in the holes with, oh, look at this. Something that really kind of should be there anyway. So all the better. I'll even take a touch of that green. Again, this is the Woodland Scenics flock. A little touch of it right there. And some of that's going to fall off, just like our rocks. And here's another area again where we have plenty of just dark paint, but now this is where that skull doesn't look like it just like was dropped there. Like somebody just took it out of a physiology class and just dumped it there. Here's some of our, again, our forest floor coverage there. Bit of the arid landscape. Again, some of these bigger rocks, those will just kind of come off. And then for what it's worth, a little bit of our green flock there. Another expanse of here that's kind of boring. Instead of, in the past, what I would have done is just paint the heck out of that, which if I wanted no foliage or greenery whatsoever, then I'd have to do that. But I knew I wanted something a little bit more. Instead of just the dark forest stuff, I'm going to throw some of this in here. A little bit of our dark forest in there, and now finish that off with some of our greenery. Okay, we've turned this around to here. Once again, going to get a little bit of our glue, not too much, not too much. Some of our forest cover, the arid landscape, and back to our green. Let's do some of the top layer here. Again, some of this might be added after the fact when we've got our beast sitting on there and we know for sure. However, I know back in here I can do some stuff. And that's going to be a hint of the forest stuff, but then mostly this. Mostly the green again. Up here, gotta wait. Gotta wait till that thing is actually on there. We'll give us a little bit of grass out here, or some kind of greenery. Same down here. So our forest floor here especially, a little there. Now some of our arid landscape, and our last batch of some of our green here. And even maybe on this log, well, not quite that much. Goes a little bit of our greenishness here. Okay. So some of the extra falls off, and so there you have it, folks. That's that. We're going to try and get you some pictures of this. I hope this is helpful. I appreciate all the support on all the different levels here, but you guys know how much I love my basing. Here, let's back out one step here so you can see the whole thing. There, look at that. Lots of tech. That base, as simple as it is, it still tells enough of a story, and it certainly matches the rest of the army. So that's another important thing. We got lots of little interesting things. See that little scene right there? You got your skulls in there, and again, some of this is just going to fall away here. So look at that. Look at that fun little scene within a scene within a scene. How's that? Layered scenes. But I'll catch you guys on the next basing episode. There's a whole lot of fun things planned, so be sure you stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you next time.